What's up, everyone, and welcome back to PSquared Productions. It's Preston here, joined by a very special guest and a very good friend of mine, Josh, as we kick off the baseball podcast.
How's it going, everyone? I'm Josh, and I'll be joining you alongside Preston as we dive into our 2018 MLB season preview. Let's jump right into it.
Okay, so today is episode 1 of a 4-part series that we're doing in this baseball preview. And today we're going to cover the AL and NL West, and then we'll cover the AL and NL Central later, as well as the East. And then our final episode will be a predictions episode where we do our predictions on the upcoming season, the playoffs, and the award ceremonies. And we're going to start this off with the AL West, and we're going to start with the team that finished last and work our way up to the team that finished best. So our first team is going to be the Oakland A's, and as far as their offseason has gone, not a lot's happened. They traded back for Brandon Moss. They traded for Stephen Piscotty. They signed Yusmeiro Petit. Those are pretty much the biggest moves that the A's made this offseason. I'm not expecting a big season from the A's. I'm expecting a pretty similar position to last year. I think that they probably will finish last, but I do think that the Stephen Piscotty story is a big deal because St. Louis trades him to Oakland where he gets to be closer to his mom who's suffering from ALS. So I think that as far as feel-good stories are, that's the best story of the offseason. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's about as cool as it gets. For a player who absolutely deserves something like that for his mother, it means a ton. The rest of the A's, this team really doesn't stand out to me. Their middle infield's interesting with Lowry and Simeon, but I'm not really seeing much between their rotation and the rest of the players. Chris Davis, though, at DH is going to be an interesting thing to watch for them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But other than that, I really don't see someone on the A's where I'm just screaming to watch. I would love to watch Chris Davis smack some home runs, though, out in Oakland.
Yeah, and I really like Matt Olson and Matt Chapman. I think that both of them are young stars on the rise. Olson hits homers like it's his breakfast. I mean, it's ridiculous. And Matt Chapman plays insane Gold Glove defense. But like we said, I mean, I'm not expecting much from the A's, and it sounds like you aren't either. So moving on to the team that finished second to last in the division, the Texas Rangers, who have been really good in previous seasons. But it seemed like A's started to catch up to them there this past season. I'm not really sure what to expect from them. They have so many question marks, health question marks. Beltre's getting older. He's the leader of that team. Their core is kind of aging. I mean, you look at Adrian Beltre, Elvis Andrus, Cole Hamels. Those are like the three guys on that team that you expect to dominate. And, you know, they're kind of reaching their peak. And I'm not really sure what to expect from Nomar Mazara and Joey Gallo and these young prospects that they have coming up. Willie Calhoun, who they acquired last year for Darvish. I mean, these guys, I don't know if they're ready to take that mantle. And I feel like there's too many questions in the rotation when you look at signings like Tim Lincecum and Doug Fister. And then they're bringing in Mike Minor to be a starter after his injuries. And when he pitched as a bullpen guy last year, I mean, there's so many question marks. Things could really turn around for the Rangers quickly if these guys perform. But I'm just seeing more of the same from last year, a mediocre season. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, the Rangers really haven't changed a ton. They're going with the six-man rotation this year. I think that'll be interesting to watch play out, but they really aren't the team they used to be a few years back. I am interested to see Big Sexy make it up there.
Oh, yeah.
I hope he gets a shot out there and keeps it going. The team they've struggled to really keep going from where they were a few years ago and kind of faltered. And to me, it's disappointing to see that when they had a good foundation and it all started to just kind of dissipate around them.
Yeah, I agree with that. The next team on our list is the Seattle Mariners. And this is an interesting team to me. I think that the Mariners have a ton of talent. I mean, you look across their infield with Healy, who they just acquired from the A's, Cano, Segura, and Seager. I mean, you look at that infield, and then you throw Nelson Cruz at DH. They just acquired D. Gordon. I mean, that's a whole other topic in itself.
Oh,
if
yeah.
D. Gordon will be able to handle center field. I'm not really sure what to think about that. But as far as offensive players go, I think that the Mariners are going to have another great offensive year. I think that, like a lot of teams that we're seeing now in baseball, the Mariners' biggest problem is injuries. And, I mean, this can be said about so many teams, but you look at their rotation and your best pitcher is James Paxton, and he just can't seem to get through a full season healthy. And then you've got aging pitchers like Felix and Iwakuma and these other guys that are coming up. It seems like they have a good collection of like number 4 starters, but no one that's ready to take that mantle. And
Absolutely.
so I'm not sure what to expect from the Mariners this year than, maybe another mediocre season. And I wouldn't say mediocre because I think that they could very well be in the wild card hunt, and I think they probably will be in the wild card hunt, but I just don't know if they've done enough to get over that hump. And I know that Seattle fans are hungry for a playoff appearance.
Oh, absolutely. This team is pretty good offensively, but like you said, their pitching really is where they're going to have to try to find their ground. Felix Hernandez, who has been amazing over the years, really is getting older, and he's not going to stay the starter he once was. I'm very interested to see D. Gordon in center field because he is really fast, but I'm not sure this guy's going to be able to play the outfield as well as they hope. I hope it works out. He's a great guy. The rest of the team looks great. Nelson Cruz, he's going to hit a lot of home runs. And Robinson Cano, he's getting older, but I sure expect him to play another great season like he always does.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, moving on to our next team who finished second last year, the Los Angeles Angels. If you haven't noticed by now, everyone, I may be a little bit of an Angels fan. So I'm going to try to keep this as non-biased as possible. But I will say that the Angels have probably had one of the best off seasons of any team in baseball this year. We acquired Shohei Ohtani, Japanese Babe Ruth, as some like to call him. He can hit, he can pitch, he can throw 100 miles per hour, he can hit you a 500-foot home run. I mean, this guy is almost mythical at this point. I'm beyond excited to see him play for the Angels. I can't express how much I love that move. And it's like an honor that he would even choose the Angels as his team because he had every team to choose from. So great move for the Angels there. It's like hitting the lotto. But I think that underrated moves like acquiring Ian Kinsler to play second base for us when we've been so bad at second the past couple of years, that could be huge. He's a very steady player. You know what you're going to get with him. Great defense, and you're going to get some good pop from the bat as well. He had a little bit of a struggle last year, but I'm expecting a bounce back this season. If you look at his peripherals, he was hurt by his batting average and balls in play, and his line drive rates were actually above average than his career numbers. So I expect Kinsler to bounce back strong. You get Zach Cozart coming off of a contract year, and then you re-sign Justin Upton, who had the opt-out in his contract this offseason. Getting Upton probably at the beginning of the offseason has been the biggest steal so far because no one really talks about it, but that completes the Angels outfield with none other than Mike Trout and Cole Calhoun. And then you've got Albert Pujols, a new Albert Pujols. He's skinny. He's lost some weight. Is that going to help? I don't know, but I think it's only good for him to get lighter on his feet. The big question for the Angels is the rotation. You have to wonder if everyone can stay healthy. It's a pretty reoccurring theme, isn't it? The health of pitchers. But if everyone's healthy in that Angels rotation, they will absolutely be competing for a playoff spot this year. And I can't wait to see it happen. Hopefully I'm not looking back at this prediction and regretting it here in a few months. But I'm definitely looking forward to this upcoming season and what the Angels can do. What do you think about them?
I've got the Angels locked in at the second wild card. I really think this team is going to make the playoffs. I think they have a great core around them. I really love the move of signing Ian Kinsler. He's been a great guy over the years, no matter where he's been, and I think he's an awesome player to have for the team. Zach Cozart was a great move as well. And then, of course, Shohei Ohtani. I mean, this guy is insane, and I just cannot wait to see him hit his first home run in the majors. I can't wait to see him get his first strikeout in the majors. Everything about this is great for baseball. It's great for foreign fans. It's great domestically. I mean, when was the last time we had a guy that was pitching and batting DH and doing the things he is going to do? This guy can crush a ball. And I cannot wait. This is going to be fantastic for Major League Baseball.
And while I agree with all that, and I love my Angels, we get to the final team, the team that won the World Series, the team that won the West, the Astros. They are the class of baseball right now. I mean, it's fair to say they won the World Series. They deserve it. But you look at this team, so young, everyone can get better. That's what's scary about the Astros. Alex Bregman can get better. Carlos Correa can get better. George Springer can get better. Their big stars just keep on improving. Jose Altuve, you know what you're going to get with Altuve, MVP production every year. But the biggest thing about the Astros is their pitching. It's elite. If Justin Verlander pitches like he did down the stretch for him, they're going to be unstoppable again. Dallas Keuchel, Justin Verlander, and their big acquisition this offseason, Garrett Cole from the Pirates. a third ace pitcher that they can add to that rotation that's already one of the best in baseball. I don't see anyone catching the Astros. I don't see anyone catching the Astros in baseball, period. I think that they're going to be a very, very dangerous team to repeat. I won't tell you if I think they're going to repeat. You'll have to see that in the predictions. But it's such a rarity to see someone repeat. And for me to say that they have such a good chance at it, I think coming from myself is a huge deal because you just don't see this in baseball. There's pretty good parity, but the Astros are stacked. It is ridiculous how good this team is. And I'm sure that your feelings are the same, Josh.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you look at the Astros, they are easily the best, well-rounded team in Major League Baseball. Jose Altuve has been developing so well over the years. He is absolutely phenomenal on the field. But Carlos Correa, George Springer are also great players. This team is so ready to go back to the World Series. I wouldn't be shocked if they did. And their pitching is insane, adding Garrett Cole. I mean, Garrett Cole, like you said, you add a third ace to that roster. Whew. It's crazy. There's going to be no doubt about it that they take the West. I mean, they're unbeatable now.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it's not no doubt about it, but I can't really argue with that because they're so well rounded and every one of their pitchers can improve. It's just I could go on about the Astros for days, but I can't. So we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on to the NL West now as we preview that division. The NL West, by my opinion, is the best division in baseball.
Oh, easily.
I think that they proved that last year with 3 playoff teams. It's so impressive. But we're going to start with the team that finished last and probably shockingly finished last to everyone, and that's the San Francisco Giants. The Giants have had such an interesting offseason to me, trading for Evan Longoria, trading for Andrew McCutchen. I may have called him the home wreckers of baseball. You can quote me on that one because it's ridiculous. They're taking everyone's franchise players. You got to watch out. But this Giants team, is that enough? That's my question to them. I don't think it is. They had an awful year last year, and they were definitely plagued by some unlucky events like Madison Bumgarner getting hurt in a motorcycle accident. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. But I just don't see enough to overcome finishing last in this stacked division. They're going to be a fun team to watch, no doubt, and I think that they're going to be in contention, but I don't know if they're going to have enough to get over it. But an aging core like that, this is it for them. I mean, this is their ownership saying, hey, guys, we're going to give it one last go for you older veterans because that team is looking pretty old. Buster Posey's not getting any younger. Madison Bumgarner's not getting any younger. And then you've got Kutch and Longo, these guys that are just yearning for a World Series ring. It'll be a fun team to watch. They all seem to be, superstars from their own, little draft class kind of 5-10 years ago when they were elite. And so it'll be fun to see if they can get the band together and put that push in. But unfortunately, I just don't see it happening. I'm not sure what your thoughts are, but they are an interesting team.
Oh, yeah. This team, if they had Longoria and Kutch from 5-6 years ago, it would be crazy to look at this and say, holy crap, they added those guys. Now, it's unfortunate because I really like McCutchen. I really like Longoria, but they're not the players they once were, and that's what kind of stinks for them. The Giants don't have the talent they once did. They've all aged. The core is kind of at their end, and I don't see them going anywhere. They may sneak into 4th, but the team I don't think did enough in the offseason, and I think ownership knows that. I think the fans are going to agree with that. And moving forward, I think they're going to have to start looking at adding prospects and building up from the ground and have a full rebuild.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that, like I said, this is the end of an era for them. So they're giving it one last go. But the only question is giving it that one last go, you're taking away value from your players when you could have traded them now and restocked that farm system, which they badly need to do. They need a better farm system. And, I'm never going to fault a team for going for it, because that's what the fans deserve. They deserve teams going for it. There's other teams in Major League Baseball right now that could use a lesson on that. But it's just interesting to see where they're going to be, 5 years from now. This Giants dynasty that we've lived in, it's coming to an end, and this might be the last hurrah for them, the final stand.
Oh, yeah.
So moving on, we move on to the Padres, a team that's almost the exact opposite from the Giants. And the Padres, they kind of stole the show, didn't they? They signed Eric Hosmer to a monster contract.
Crazy.
And, man, thinking about this move, it doesn't make sense to me.
Not one bit.
Yeah, personally, I don't think that Eric Hosmer is as good as people would like to suggest. You can call me a stat nerd on that, but I don't think his defense is as elite as some people would like to say it is. I don't think that his hitting is an amazing tool for him. He can hit for average, that's great, but at the first base position, when you're offering someone that much money, you want them to be the cornerstone of your franchise. You want them to take over games for you, and I have a hard time giving someone like Hosmer that much money for him to be, determined on grit and leadership in the Padres clubhouse. Yeah, they need guys like that. This is a young team, and that's why they're so much fun to watch. They've got so many good prospects coming up, and they have some good prospects that just graduated into the major league team, like Manuel Margot and Hunter Renfroe. Those are guys to watch out for. Will Myers is always a fun player to watch. He's a really talented player. He's making the move back to the outfield, which I don't think is going to be a bad thing for him. So, I mean, the Padres are really interesting. They've kind of positioned themselves to try and win some games this year, but I don't think they expect themselves to make the playoffs. I think that they expect that Hosmer move to kick in, maybe like 2 or 3 years from now when they've got the big-time prospects coming up. A name to watch out for, Fernando Tatis Jr. That kid is a monster. He's a top 10 MLB prospect. He's 19 years old, and he's already up in the big league club in spring training, and he's tearing it up. I love the look of this kid. I think that he will be that future star that they need to step in alongside Hosmer, but I still think they're a couple years away. What about you?
Yeah, this team's definitely still trying to get there, but they're not there. I was really shocked by the Hosmer move. I mean, if you're Hosmer, that's fantastic. Go and take that money. That's
sunny
awesome.
San Diego.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You got the weather, you got the money. Unfortunately for him, he's not going to a team that's going to win it all. I would have liked to have seen Hosmer go somewhere after seeing him play for the Royals and do well with the Royals. I would have loved to have seen him turn that into another team that was playoff bound. Unfortunately, the Padres aren't that team, but they have an interesting core coming up. And like you said, the prospects are what the Padres are focusing on, and that's a good thing. They're off by a couple of years, but if Hosmer's still around and doesn't get traded somehow, this team has a good veteran that's going to be there to help lead them. And I think that's where maybe the deal makes sense for them. Hosmer could be a great leader in the clubhouse for these young guys coming up, and they are going all in on the prospects.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. All right, so moving on to our next team, we've got the Colorado Rockies, last year's second wild card team. A really, really fun team to watch. Everyone loves Rocktober. I'd imagine that's pretty fair to say. This team is going to be good again, and they've made some big moves this offseason fortifying their bullpen. And they did that last year, too. They signed Jake McGee, and they signed Mike Dunn, and they signed Greg Holland. And everyone was like, what are the Rockies doing, building this elite back-end bullpen? Well, Greg Holland leaves, and what do? They re-sign Jake McGee. What do? They bring in Wade Davis. They bring in Brian Shaw. They just keep on loading up that bullpen. And personally, I actually think that's a really smart decision for them. In Coors Field, you're never going to have great starting pitching. And so for them to realize that they can get these elite back-end relievers to come in and shorten the game for them, because they're always going to have a stacked offense. I really like this method for them. I think that it's gonna work out again for them. I personally think that they're going to be in a playoffs, in the hunt for a playoff spot once again. I think it's going to be a fun season in Colorado. That offense is elite by every statistic, every metric. You look at Charlie Blackmon, MVP candidate. Nolan Arenado, MVP candidate. Anytime you have two MVP candidates on one team, you're doing something right offensively. And then you look at great players like DJ LeMahieu and Trevor Story. Those guys up the middle are really solid guys to have in your lineup. They brought back Chris Iannetta, an old face. He had a great year with the D-backs last year, and he hit a good amount of power, just adds more power to that lineup. They've got a good young kid coming up, Ryan McMahon, to play first base. I think that they need to make McMahon the first baseman first off. I don't think that Ian Desmond should be playing first base like he did last year.
Right.
I think that was a really weird move. Move Desmond back to the outfield to replace Carlos Gonzalez, who they lost this year, and let McMahon come up, because this kid is a legit prospect. He's got some serious power, and he just completes their lineup to give them more of a Carlos Gonzalez-like figure, in my opinion, when you're looking back at Cargo's good days. They've got some really good young pitching. I like John Gray a lot. I think that other guys are going to have to step up to the plate. They had some big surprises last year with Marquez and and Bettis and Anderson. I mean, I look at these guys and they don't jump off the page to you, but they got the job done in a very difficult environment. And for these starters, they're looking at going 5 innings, pass it off to the bullpen, let the bullpen do the rest. And I think that that's going to work for the Rockies again this year. I really like their team. They interest me a lot. I'll be keeping an eye on them throughout the entire season. What about you?
Yeah, this team is really doing a great job at building a great core, but their bullpen is phenomenal. And I think one guy to not sleep on is Brian Shaw. He was great in Cleveland, and a lot of guys gave him a lot of slack, but he is awesome. I think he's going to do a great job out there, and I definitely would watch Charlie Blackmon. He's a phenomenal player, and that ball flies in Colorado, as we saw. And I just really hope to see a better season from Trevor Story. I know he's been kind of up and down, but he has been developing well, and I think he has potential to have a great season coming forward, and it would be fantastic to push them up. I definitely think they can take the second wild card, no problem, and the first one is within sight for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. So we move on to the Diamondbacks, who finished in the first wild card last year, and then they won the wild card game to advance. This D-backs team is a lot of fun to watch. I really bought into what they had to do last year. I really bought into their team's spirit. I mean, I'm as big a Paul Goldschmidt fan as there is.
Oh, absolutely.
I love Paul Goldschmidt, completely underrated player, and it's kind of ridiculous that he's underrated, but he is. I mean, no one talks about how elite Paul Goldschmidt is. He plays elite defense. He plays elite offense. He can run really well for a first baseman. Paul Goldschmidt is a great, great player. The big question with the D-backs, what do you do now that J.D. Martinez is gone? They acquired J.D. Martinez last year, and he took off at the deadline. Unbelievable production in that second half, and you're losing that production, and it makes you wonder, what are they going to do? Well, I think that they went out and did a really good, solid, under-the-radar move in acquiring Steven Souza Jr. I really like Souza. He was a solid player at the Rays. He's not J.D. Martinez. I mean, let's put that out there, right? He's not J.D. Martinez, but he's going to supply you that power that J.D. Martinez had, and he's going to be a good bat to throw in there. They also signed Gerard Dyson. Gerard Dyson I really, really like. An elite defensive center fielder, incredible speed, and he can play anywhere in the outfield. He could be your fourth outfielder. He's very much someone that they can move around. A.J. Pollock, he's healthy again. This will be a full season for him, back to full health. And when A.J. Pollock was healthy 2 years ago, he was a really, really good player, or 3 years ago, whatever it was. A.J. Pollock can play elite offense, elite defense. He was almost an MVP candidate behind Goldschmidt. And then you look at other players like Ketel Marte and Jake Lamb. They've got a good young core across that entire team. And then they're led by the ace, Zach Greinke. And he's got to live up to that contract. He's getting older, but he lived up to it last year. And he really provided that spark that they needed to really get the job done as far as pitching. Because that was their biggest question mark last year, was pitching, and he got it done. And then the big surprise for him last year was Robbie Ray, who pitched like a second ace for him. If Robbie Ray can repeat that performance, the D-backs will be in the playoffs again, guaranteed. He was such a surprise in that, you know, his numbers kind of pointed that he would improve, but I don't think anyone expected him to improve to ace-like potential. And offering that alongside Greinke, and then having a young pitcher like Taijuan Walker to come in after him, their rotation is underrated in my eyes. And I like the way that this D-backs team is going. I like their future. I like some prospects coming up for them. I think the D-backs are in a good spot, and I think that you'll see them contend for a playoff spot once again.
Yeah, I think, you mentioned underrated so many times throughout your talk. I definitely think this entire team is underrated.
Yeah.
They have a great core that they're building around. They've brought this team up. They're developing everything so well. But Paul Goldschmidt, why is he underrated? Because Paul Goldschmidt is so good. I love watching this guy play. And to see him go as underrated, I guess maybe it's because they're in Arizona. I don't know. But yeah, he's so good. And Steven Souza Jr., adding him is fantastic. He's been great with the Rays. I think maybe a new change of scenery and a team that can win is going to help him. And obviously you have Zach Greinke. He knows what he has to do now. This team can contend. They have a chance to make it far in the playoffs if they play well. And he's just got to go out there and throw the ball and, live up to the contract. I think he's doing a good job so far, and he can continue to do that.
Yeah, and I think a big move for him last year was having Archie Bradley break out in the bullpen. Archie Bradley was a huge starting pitching prospect for them coming up. And then, he was having his struggles starting. And everyone was wondering what was going to happen to Archie Bradley. Well, his stuff plays so well. We knew that it would happen eventually to where he would figure it out. And for him to figure out in the bullpen, he was such a key piece for him down the stretch. If he can repeat that performance and get better and improve upon it, that's really going to take him to the next step. But I will say this before we move on. If you don't know who Paul Goldschmidt is, or if you don't watch enough of Paul Goldschmidt, after this video, and after you like and subscribe on this video, please go type in Paul Goldschmidt in YouTube and watch this dude's highlights. He is an unbelievable player. Yeah, just enjoy. Sit back and enjoy that. Paul Goldschmidt, love the guy. So we move on to the first place team in the division, last year's losers in the World Series, the Los Angeles Dodgers. And the Dodgers, there's not much to say except this team is just elite. This is one of the best teams of baseball. They'll stay one of the best teams of baseball. Big question, what are they going to do now that Yu Darvish is gone? But, Yu Darvish, who was good down the stretch, struggled for him in the postseason.
Yes,
so you can't really, count that as a huge loss because they only had him for half a season last year. All in all, this team is elite. I love their pitching staff. I mean, how can you not love Clayton Kershaw? But I love the guys behind him. I love Maeda. I love Rich Hill. I mean, I think the Dodgers have developed such a good system on getting these guys with huge spin rates on their pitches, and they're kind of ahead of the game in that notion. Kenley Jansen, the best closer in baseball, in my opinion. This team is just so good across the diamond. Cody Bellinger. You've got Corey Seager. You've got all these great players. Justin Turner. I think it's interesting that they're going to bring back Chase Utley. I guess they like his veteran leadership. But I just think that this team is just they're so much fun to watch. And then you have the breakout of Chris Taylor last year. Come on, y'all. The rich get richer. You've got someone like Chris Taylor who's been a utility player all his life, and then he shows up to the Dodgers and suddenly, boom, elite player. Justin Turner did the same thing. He shows up as a utility player and now he's an elite player. It's like the Dodgers are doing everything right, and it's really interesting to watch, especially from the perspective as an Angels fan. You see them, right across from us in LA, and we always get compared. That franchise is doing everything right now. But the problem is that they can't win the big one. They're so close to getting it done. Losing in Game 7. Yeah, losing in Game 7 last year. I mean, it's really interesting to see if this is the year the Dodgers can get over the hump. And I think it's a little bit of an overrated term, calling Clayton Kershaw a choker in the postseason, because I don't think that he is a choker in the postseason. I think he's had some bad performances. He's had some good performances. But for the sake of Clayton Kershaw, this guy needs to go out and dominate in a playoff series, and they need to go out and get him a ring. I mean, now is the time. This team is stacked. They've got a great farm system coming up still, so they're just going to continue to reload. This is going to be a really interesting year for the Dodgers, but I mean, I'd expect more of the same. They're going to be good. This is just one of the best teams in baseball.
Yeah, I think this team ends up with 100 wins, somewhere around there. Like you said, Turner, he's a surprise guy, and he comes in, and now he's this awesome player there, and I think he's going to continue it this year. Corey Seager, great move to have him in there. And then Chase Utley, I agree with you on this one. I think it's a little weird they're keeping him around because he's so old, but I think he is a great leader. He's been there before, and he knows what to do. But I am telling you now, Clayton Kershaw is winning the Cy Young this year. I know it's not our predictions. He's going to pitch a killer year, and he's going to do well in the postseason. Clayton Kershaw is due for that big monster year, and he's already had them, but I'm talking playoffs. And we're going big with Kershaw. I think he's going to just crush it. This team is so good. They're the talk of baseball between them and the Astros. The entire West is just phenomenal to watch.
Yeah, I think that a big thing as we wrap up this episode is that West Coast baseball is really, really intriguing. The AOS and the NOS is going to be really good this year, guys. I know that it's hard for the East Coasters to stay up late and watch these West Coast games, but I really encourage it for this upcoming season because you've got two of the best divisions in baseball out west. You've got so many intriguing storylines. I mean, you've got Clayton Kershaw, Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, all the rest of the Dodgers. I mean, the whole team is full of superstars. Cody Bellinger, Corey Seager. We didn't even mention, not really a superstar, but the guy that'll be splitting time with Chase Utley at second base, Logan Forsythe, I think personally is an underrated player. But the West Coast baseball is just so much fun to watch, and it's going to be a fun year for these two divisions. Those are our thoughts on those two divisions, and we'll see more to come throughout the season on not just these teams, but all across baseball. All right, thanks for joining us on our AL West and NL West preview. Join us next time on the AL and NL Central preview. Please like and subscribe on the video if you want to see more. Thank you for joining me, Josh, and let's see you next time.